Kang Deho pressed his back against the cold metal wall and listened to the screams coming from the city below. The alien swarm had arrived 3 days ago, and now Kepler colony was dying. Black creatures with too many legs crawled through the streets, turning everything they touched into more of themselves. Deho gripped his rifle tighter. He was captain of what used to be 200 human soldiers. Now only 37 remained alive in this abandoned warehouse on the city's edge. They had food for maybe 4 days and ammunition for one good fight. "Captain," said Lee Jinsu, one of his sergeants, "the radio is picking up something strange." Deho walked over to their makeshift communication station. Through the static, he heard a deep voice speaking in broken human language. "Human survivors, we know you are there. We come to talk." Every soldier in the room went silent. They all knew that voice. It belonged to the Kethvar, the alien race that had been humanity's enemy for 20 years. These creatures stood 3 meters tall with natural armor covering their bodies like living tanks. Their claws could cut through steel, and their weapons could melt human flesh in seconds. "It's a trap," whispered Private Park Eugene. "They want to finish us off." Dai-Ho stared at the radio. The Kethvar had attacked human colonies, killed thousands of people, and eaten prisoners of war. Working with them seemed impossible, but outside, the black swarm was growing stronger every hour. "We meet at the old bridge in 1 hour," Deho said into the radio. "3 of you, 3 of us. Any tricks and we shoot." An hour later, Deho stood on the broken bridge with Jinsu and Eugene beside him. The city burned in the distance, filling the sky with smoke. Then they saw 3 massive shapes moving toward them through the fog. The Kethvar warriors were even bigger than Deho remembered. Their leader had scars across his armored face and yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "I am Vexthor. You are Captain Kang. How do you know my name? We have been watching your kind for many cycles. You fight well for such small creatures." Deho felt anger rising in his chest. "Your people killed my brother on Titan Station." "Yes. And your people killed many of mine. But today we face something worse." Vexathor pointed toward the city with one massive claw. "The Void Swarm consumes everything. They took our ship when we tried to leave this world. Now we are trapped like you." "So you want to work together?" Deho said. It wasn't a question. "We want to survive. Your weapons are weak, but you know this planet. Our strength is great, but we need your knowledge." Jinsu stepped forward. "Captain, we can't trust them." "They're monsters." Vexthor's yellow eyes fixed on Jinsu. "Monster. Yes, that is what you call us. But look at your city, human. The real monsters are already here." Deho looked at the burning buildings where the swarm was, spreading. Every hour they waited, more people died. His radio crackled with desperate calls for help from survivors trapped throughout the colony. Soon there would be no humans left to save. "What do you want from us?" Deho asked. "Your people know the tunnels under the city. You have maps, supply, locations, hiding places. We can fight together until the swarm is dead." "And after that?" Vexthor's scarred face showed something that might have been a smile. "After that, we return to killing each other." Deho felt sick, but he knew they had no choice. "My people won't like this. My warriors do not like it either. But we are practical creatures. Dead enemies serve no purpose." That night, Deho stood before his remaining soldiers in the warehouse. Some were barely 18 years old. Others had fought the Kethvar on 3 different worlds. All of them looked at him like he had lost his mind. "You want us to fight alongside those things?" asked Corporal Kim Min-ho. "They ate Sergeant Thompson alive on New Seoul." "I remember," Dae-ho said. "But right now they're the only chance we have." "There has to be another way," said Medic Park So-jin. "We could try to reach the orbital platforms." "The platforms are gone. The swarm destroyed them on day 1. The room went quiet. Everyone knew he was right. They had all seen the burning debris falling from the sky. "The Kethvar have weapons that can hurt the swarm," Dae-ho continued. "Their armor can protect them from the infection. We need that protection if we want to save any civilians still alive in the city." "What about after?" asked Private Yoon Mi-ra. "When the swarm is gone?" Dae-ho didn't have a good answer for that question. The Kethvar had been clear about returning to their old war, but maybe some of his people would still be alive to see that day. The next morning, 12 Kethvar warriors arrived at the warehouse. They moved like predators, their clawed feet making deep scratches in the concrete floor. Their leader, Vexthor, carried a weapon that looked like it could punch holes through mountains. The humans watched nervously as the aliens set up their equipment. Everything about the Kethvar seemed designed for killing. Even their breathing sounded threatening. "Your people are afraid," Vexthor said to Dae-ho. "Your people killed their friends." "Yes, fear is good. It keeps weak things alive longer." Dae-ho wanted to punch the alien commander, but Vexthor's smallest finger was bigger than Dae-ho's entire arm. Instead, he focused on the mission. "The swarm is thickest around the government district," he said, pointing to a map. "If we can clear that area, we might find other survivors." Vexthor studied the map with interest. "Many tunnels connect to this location. Good for ambush. The swarm learns fast. Every attack teaches them something new. Then we must be faster. Learners." As they prepared for their first joint operation, Dae-ho watched his soldiers working alongside the Kethvar warriors. The size difference was shocking. Even the smallest Kethvar could probably tear a human in half without effort. But the humans had something the aliens didn't understand yet. When Private Lee Hyun-woo struggled to carry heavy ammunition, 3 other soldiers immediately helped him. When Corporal Kim Min-ho shared his rations with an injured comrade, he didn't expect anything in return. The Kethvar watched these interactions with confusion. "Your weak ones should be left behind," Vexthor told Dae-ho. "We don't leave people behind." "Inefficient. Resources are limited." "Maybe, but it's who we are." Vexthor made a sound that might have been laughter. "Interesting. We will see if your sentiment survives contact with the enemy." As night fell, the mixed force prepared to enter the tunnels beneath the city. Humans checked their weapons while Kethvar warriors sharpened their claws. 2 species that had fought each other for decades now prepared to fight together against something worse than either of them. Dae-ho looked at his soldiers one last time. They were scared, but they were ready. Tomorrow they would discover if monsters could learn to work with humans, or if this desperate alliance would destroy them all. 3 days after escaping the Tower of Stars, Taemin's team moved through the forest like ghosts. They had learned to avoid the main roads where kingdom patrols might spot them. The mages had given them basic information about the realm, but the soldiers preferred to gather their own intelligence. "Movement ahead," Junho whispered through the radio. He lay hidden in a tree, watching a group of travelers through his scope. "Looks like refugees, families with children and elderly. The team observed from concealment as dozens of people passed by. Their clothes were torn and dirty. Many carried bundles of belongings on their backs. Some pushed carts loaded with everything they owned. "They're running from something," Mina noted. An old woman collapsed near their hiding spot. Her adult son tried to help her up, but she was too weak to continue walking. The family gathered around, not knowing what to do. Taemin made a decision. "Hana, can you translate for us?" "The magic translation still works," she confirmed. The captain stepped out of the forest, moving slowly with his hands visible. The refugees saw him and some screamed. Children hid behind their parents. The men grabbed whatever weapons they had. "We're friends," Taemin said calmly. "We want to help." A middle-aged man with a woodcutter's axe stepped forward. "You're not from around. Here your clothes are strange." "No. We're from very far away. What happened to your village?" The man's face filled with pain. "Demons came 2 nights ago. They burned everything, killed anyone who fought back. We barely escaped." Mina examined the old woman while Taemin questioned the refugees. She had medical training and could see the woman was suffering from exhaustion and dehydration. Without help, she would die. "Here," Mina said, offering water and energy bars from their supplies. The food looked strange to the refugees, but they accepted it gratefully. "How many demons attacked your village?" Taemin asked. "Maybe 20, the woodcutter replied. "But they had magic, fire that came from their hands, strength that could break stone walls." "How many people lived in your village?" 300. Most are dead now." Taemin exchanged glances with his team. 20 enemies had destroyed a settlement of 300 people. Either these demons were incredibly powerful, or the villagers had no idea how to defend themselves. "Where are you going now?" he asked. "The capital city. They say the Great Walls can keep demons out. That's 2 weeks walking. You have elderly and children. Half of you won't make it." The refugees looked terrified. They knew he was right, but they had no other choice. "There might be another way," Taemin said. "What if you fought back?" The woodcutter laughed bitterly. "Fight demons? We're farmers and craftsmen, not soldiers." "Soldiers can be trained," Junho said, joining the conversation. "Anyone can learn to defend their home." The refugees stared at the 4 strangers in disbelief. Fight demons? It seemed impossible. Hana had been monitoring radio frequencies and magical energy signatures. "Captain, I'm detecting movement to the north, large group moving this way." "How? Large?" "At least 50 contacts, moving in formation." Taemin ordered his team to defensive positions. "You people need to hide," he told the refugees. "Get into the forest and don't make any noise." The woodcutter grabbed his arm. "If it's demons, you should run too. 4 people can't fight 50. "Watch and learn," Mina said with a grim smile. The approaching force wasn't demons. It was a patrol from the kingdom of Astoria, 50 soldiers in metal armor carrying swords and spears. They moved loudly down the road, making no effort to hide their presence. Captain Marcus of the Royal Guard led the patrol. He was a career soldier, brave but trained in old-fashioned warfare. When his scouts reported strange warriors in the forest, he decided to investigate personally. "Come out and show yourselves," Marcus called. "This is Kingdom territory." Taman stepped onto the road, but his team remained hidden. Years of training had taught them never to reveal their full strength. "Too early. I'm Captain Lee Taman," he said. "We're travelers from a distant land." Marcus studied the stranger's unusual clothing and equipment. "You carry weapons, but wear no kingdom colors. Are you mercenaries?" "Something like that. We're here to learn." "About the demon threat," the kingdom captain laughed. "Learn? You'll be dead before you see your first demon. These creatures are not like human enemies." "Have you fought them yourself?" Taman asked. "Many times. Lost good men every battle. Show me how you fight." Marcus was offended by the challenge, but he was also curious about these foreigners. He ordered his men to form battle lines, the way they would face demon forces. Taman watched with growing amazement. The soldiers arranged themselves in neat rows, presenting a perfect target for any enemy with ranged weapons. Their officers stood in front, making themselves obvious targets. They carried no shields against magical attacks and seemed to have no plan beyond charging forward with swords. "This is how we've fought for 1,000 years, Marcus said proudly, "with honor and courage." "It's also how you've been losing," Taman observed. The captain's face turned red with anger. "You insult the traditions of our kingdom!" Before the argument could escalate, Hana's voice crackled through the radio. "Contact south. 20 demons moving fast toward our position," Junho confirmed from his overwatch position. "I see them. Ugly bastards with claws and fangs. Some carry weapons. Others seem to use magic." Taman turned to Marcus. "Your chance to show me how kingdom soldiers fight demons." Marcus ordered his men to form the traditional battle line. 50 soldiers in neat rows, officers in front, ready to charge when the enemy came close enough. The demons appeared at the edge of the forest. They were humanoid but larger than men, with red skin and black claws. Some carried crude weapons. Others had fire dancing around their hands. "For the kingdom!" Marcus shouted, raising his sword. The demons attacked with no formation at all, just rushing forward like wild animals, but they had magic. Fireballs exploded among the kingdom soldiers. Demon claws cut through metal armor like paper. The battle was a disaster. Kingdom soldiers fell by the dozens. Their neat formation collapsed into chaos. Officers were killed in the first few minutes, leaving the men with no leadership. "This is horrible," Mina whispered, watching through binoculars. Marcus fought bravely, but he was surrounded and outnumbered. A demon's claw raked across his chest, dropping him to the ground. The surviving soldiers began to retreat in panic. "Enough," Taman said into his radio. "Light them up." The Earth soldiers opened fire from concealment. Modern rifles cracked like thunder. Bullets designed to penetrate armor punched through demon hide like it was made of paper. The demons had never faced anything like this. Enemies they couldn't see were killing them from impossible distances. Their magic was useless against bullets moving faster than sound. In 30 seconds, it was over. 20 demons lay dead, shot down by 4 human soldiers they never even saw. The surviving kingdom soldiers stared in shock. Captain Marcus struggled to his feet, bleeding but alive. "How?" he whispered. "Different tactics," Taman said simply. "You fight with honor. We fight to win." The refugees emerged from hiding, amazed that the demons were dead. The old woman Mina had helped looked at the four strangers with new understanding. "You're the champions," she said quietly, "the ones the prophecy spoke of." Taman helped Marcus tend to his wounds. "We're just soldiers," he said. "But maybe we can teach your people to fight differently." Marcus looked at his dead men, then at the dead demons. His pride was hurt, but he wasn't stupid. "What do you want in return?" he asked. "Information, maps, supplies, and a chance to study how demons fight." "You want to fight more of them?" "We want to understand them. Once we do that, we can figure out how to beat them." As they cared for the wounded and buried the dead, word spread among the refugees. 4 strangers from another world had killed 20 demons without losing a single man. The war was about to change. Elder Song Daeho had never expected to see his village again. 3 months ago, demons had driven everyone away, burning homes and killing anyone who resisted. Now he stood at the edge of what used to be Millbrook, looking at the ruins with tears in his eyes. "We can rebuild," said a voice behind him. The old man turned to see the 4 strange soldiers who had saved them on the road. Captain Taman stood with his team studying the burned village with professional eyes. "The demons will come back," Daeho said sadly. "They always do. We should keep moving toward the capital." "Running won't solve anything," Mina replied. "Eventually you run out of places to go." Junho lowered his binoculars after scanning the surrounding forest. "Good defensive position, river on one side, hills on the other, clear fields of fire in 3 directions." "Fields of what?" asked Daeho. "Areas where you can shoot enemies before they get close," Hana explained. The elder shook his head. "We're not warriors. We're farmers, craftsmen, merchants. We don't know how to fight." "Anyone can learn," Taman said. "The question is, do you want to keep running, or do you want to take back your home?" Over the next hour, more refugees arrived. Word had spread about the strangers who killed demons. Families who had fled other destroyed villages came looking for hope. By evening, nearly 200 people had gathered in the ruins of Millbrook. They had nothing left except the clothes on their backs and a desperate desire to stop running. Taman addressed them as they sat around campfires. "We can't promise this will be easy. Some of you might die. But if you're willing to learn and fight together, we can give you a chance." "What do you want us to do?" asked a young blacksmith named Jin. "First we rebuild, not just houses but defenses. Then we train everyone who can hold a weapon. Finally, we wait for the demons to come back and show them what happens when they attack people who know how to fight." The work began at dawn. While some people rebuilt homes, others followed Mina as she designed defensive positions around the village. She had studied military engineering for years and knew how to turn any location into a fortress. "Dig here," she ordered, marking spots for trenches. "Not deep enough to hide in, just enough to slow down attackers and give defenders cover." The villagers didn't understand at first. but they trusted her. As the trenches took shape, they began to see how the design would funnel enemies into kill zones. Junho worked with the hunters and anyone who could use a bow. He taught them to shoot from concealment instead of standing in the open like targets. "Forget about honor," he told them. "Your job is to kill the enemy before he kills you. Use every advantage you can get." "But that's not how warriors fight," protested a young man who had served in the Kingdom Army. "How did that work out for your unit?" Junho asked bluntly. The former soldier looked away. His entire company had been wiped out by demons 6 months ago. He was the only survivor. Hana set up communication posts around the village using modified magical crystals. She couldn't fully understand how magic worked, but she could see it operated like a form of energy that could carry signals. "Think of these like magical telephones," she explained to the volunteers manning each post. "If you see enemies approaching, touch the crystal and speak. Everyone else will hear you instantly." Captain Taman organized the training schedule. Everyone learned basic combat skills, but he divided people into specialties based on their abilities and temperament. Former hunters became snipers. Strong young men learned to handle heavy weapons. Fast runners became scouts and messengers. Even children had jobs, carrying supplies and watching for signals. "War isn't just about fighting," Taman explained. "It's about logistics, communication, intelligence, and teamwork. Everyone has a part to play." The blacksmith Jin proved especially valuable. Under Mina's guidance, he learned to make simple explosive devices using magical components mixed with traditional materials. "This powder burns much faster than anything we had on Earth," Mina observed, watching Jin work. "Mixed with iron fragments, it makes excellent grenades." "Grenades?" Jin asked. "Small bombs you can throw at enemies." The concept horrified him at first, but after seeing what demons had done to his neighbors, Jin embraced his new role as the village demolitions expert. 3 weeks into the training, scouts reported demon activity in the area. A patrol of 12 was moving toward Millbrook, probably to check if anyone had returned to the ruins. "This is it," Taman announced to the gathered villagers. "Everything we've practiced we use now. Remember your positions, follow your orders, and trust your training." Many of the villagers were terrified, but they had nowhere left to run. This was their home, and they would defend it. The demons arrived just before sunset, moving carelessly down the main road. They expected to find empty ruins, not a prepared ambush. Jin triggered the first explosive, a buried device that destroyed the front of the demon column. The surviving demons rushed toward the village, right into the carefully prepared kill zone. Archers fired from concealed positions on rooftops and in trees. Unlike the random shooting Junho had seen before, these arrows struck with focused precision. Demons fell with multiple shafts in their bodies. The few demons who reached the defensive trenches found themselves trapped in narrow passages where Mina's explosives waited. Jin and his helpers threw their homemade grenades with deadly accuracy. In less than 10 minutes, all 12 demons were dead. The villagers had suffered only minor injuries. Elder Deho stared at the demon bodies, hardly believing what had happened. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." "This was just the beginning," Taman warned. "Word will spread. They'll Send more demons next time. Let them come, said the blacksmith Jin, cleaning blood off his hammer. We'll be ready. Over the following days, more refugees arrived. They had heard impossible stories about farmers and craftsmen defeating demons. Many didn't believe it until they saw the defensive preparations and watched the training. "You're teaching them to fight like soldiers," observed Captain Marcus, who had stayed to help coordinate with Kingdom forces. "I'm teaching them to fight like humans," Taman corrected. "Humans who refuse to give up." The village grew rapidly as word spread. Within a month, nearly 500 people had joined the settlement. They called it New Millbrook and began expanding the defenses. Mina designed a wall using local stone reinforced with magical bindings. Hana established communication links with other settlements. Junho trained teams of scouts who could monitor demon movements across a wide area. Most importantly, Taman began training local leaders who could organize their own defenses when the Earth soldiers weren't there to help. "You can't depend on us forever," he told Elder Deho. "This needs to become something you can do yourselves." "Will you leave us?" the old man asked worriedly. "Someday, maybe, but not until we're sure you can stand on your own." 2 months after the first demon attack, a much larger force approached New Millbrook. 50 demons led by a demon captain with powerful fire magic. The villagers were ready. They had learned to fight as a team using every advantage the terrain provided. When the battle ended, all 50 demons were dead, and the village had suffered. Only 3 casualties. News of the victory spread quickly through both human and demon territories. Something had changed in the war. Ordinary people were learning to fight back. In the demon lord's fortress, ancient eyes glowed with anger as reports arrived from the battlefield. Humans without magic were teaching other humans to resist. This could not be allowed to continue. Orders went out to demon commanders across the realm. Find these new warriors and destroy them before their ideas spread any further. But it was already too late. The revolution had begun. The purple lightning struck the forest clearing with a sound like breaking glass. When the light faded, 4 more figures stood where empty ground had been moments before. Unlike the first group, these newcomers wore different uniforms and carried heavier equipment. Lieutenant Colonel Yang Seungho stepped forward, his engineering officer's insignia visible on his collar. Behind him came Major Huang Ji-young, Captain Bai Wu-sung, and First Sergeant Oh Su-min. They had been conducting urban warfare training in Seoul when the dimensional rift pulled them through. "Sir, we have contact," came Junho's voice through the radio. He had been watching the magical arrival point from his hidden position. 4 more friendlies military bearing. Taman's team reached the new arrivals within minutes. The reunion was brief, but emotional. In a world of magic and monsters, finding more soldiers from home felt like a miracle. "Report, Captain," Yang ordered after introductions were complete. Taman quickly explained their situation: the magical summoning, the war with demons, and their success training local defenders. Yang listened without interruption, his engineering mind already processing the tactical possibilities. Estimated enemy strength? Yang asked. Unknown, sir. We've faced individual patrols, but intelligence suggests organized armies in the thousands. Local population's military capability? Primitive, but improving rapidly. They learn fast when properly motivated. Major Huang had been studying the magical energy readings on her equipment. As a psychological operations specialist, she was trained to analyze enemy capabilities and weaknesses. "These demons," she said, "do they show signs of organized command structure?" "Definitely," Hana replied. "They coordinate attacks and seem to follow strategic objectives. Then they can be defeated using proper military doctrine." Captain Bay. Examine the weapons and armor left by dead demons. As a heavy weapons specialist, he was interested in their combat capabilities. "Their equipment is crude but effective," he observed. "Magic seems to compensate for poor metallurgy and engineering." First Sergeant Suman was already cataloging supplies and assessing logistics needs. "We'll need a proper base of operations if we're going to expand training operations." Yang nodded. "Show me what you've built at this village." The trip to New Millbrook took 2 days. Along the way, they encountered 3 more refugee groups fleeing demon attacks. Each group told the same story: organized demon forces systematically destroying settlements and driving survivors toward the capital. "Classic terror campaign," Yang observed. "Create refugees to strain enemy resources while depopulating contested territory." "But they're making a mistake," added Major Huang. "Every displaced civilian is a potential recruit for resistance movements." When they reached New Millbrook, Yang was impressed by what the villagers had accomplished. The defensive positions were well designed, the training program was effective, and morale was surprisingly high. "You've done excellent work," he told Taman. "Now we expand operations." Yang established what he called Forward Operating Base Alpha in the hills above. New Millbrook. Using engineering expertise and local materials, his team began constructing a proper military facility. "We need manufacturing capability," he explained to the gathered villagers. "Weapons, ammunition, communications equipment, everything required to equip a modern army." The blacksmith Jin had become something of a legend after his success with explosive devices. Yang put him in charge of expanding weapons production, with Captain Bay providing technical guidance. "We'll start with simple firearms," Bay explained. "Single-shot rifles, basic gunpowder, lead bullets. Once your people master those, we'll move to more advanced designs." Meanwhile, Major Huang began psychological operations against demon forces. She had studied enemy propaganda techniques and knew how to turn them around. "Fear works both ways," she told her intelligence-gathering teams. "Demons have terrorized your people for centuries. Time to return the favor." Her first operation was simple but effective. After the next demon patrol was eliminated, she had the bodies arranged in formations that sent clear messages to other demon forces. Humans were no longer easy prey. First, Sergeant Suman tackled the massive logistics challenge of supplying a growing resistance movement. She established supply caches, organized transport networks, and coordinated resource distribution across multiple settlements. Amateur armies lose because they can't feed themselves, she explained. Professional armies win because they can stay supplied indefinitely. The expanded Earth presence had immediate effects. Within weeks, delegations began arriving from other kingdoms and settlements. Word had spread about the miraculous victories against demon forces. King Theodore of Astoria arrived with a full diplomatic escort. He was a proud man, accustomed to being the most powerful person in any room. Meeting the Earth soldiers changed his perspective dramatically. "You command no armies," he said to Yang during their first meeting. "You serve no kingdom. Yet you defeat enemies that have destroyed my finest knights. How is this possible?" "We serve something greater than any single kingdom," Yang replied. "We serve the idea that free people shouldn't have to live in fear." The king was skeptical until Yang showed him detailed battle reports and casualty figures. Human forces trained in Earth tactics were achieving victory ratios that seemed impossible by local standards. "Teach my soldiers these methods," the king demanded. "We'll teach anyone willing to learn," Yang agreed. "But there are conditions." The conditions were simple, but revolutionary. Soldiers would be promoted based on ability, not birth. Officers would be trained in logistics and strategy, not just combat. Most importantly, armies would coordinate with civilian populations instead of treating them as expendable resources. Traditional nobles hated the ideas, but desperate circumstances made change inevitable. As more kingdoms adopted Earth training, methods, demon victories became increasingly rare. The demon Lord Malthus received increasingly disturbing reports from his field commanders. Human settlements that should have fallen easily were mounting successful defenses. Demon patrols were being ambushed by enemies they couldn't locate. Most troubling of all, human forces seemed to be growing stronger instead of weaker. "Bring me the survivors," he ordered his lieutenants. "I must understand what has changed." The few demons who had survived encounters with Earth-trained forces told consistent stories. Humans were using new weapons that killed from impossible distances. They fought without honor, using ambushes and explosives instead of meeting enemies in fair battle. Most disturbing, they seemed to work together with perfect coordination. Malthus had ruled for over 1,000 years. He had seen human armies rise and fall, always following the same patterns. This was something entirely new. "Double the patrols," he commanded. "Find these new human leaders and kill them before their ideas spread further." But the ideas had already spread too far. Across the human kingdoms, ordinary people were learning that they didn't have to be victims. Farmers were becoming guerrilla fighters. Craftsmen were making weapons. Merchants were running supply networks for resistance cells. The war was entering a new phase, and for the first time in centuries, humans were not losing. Yang stood on the walls of Forward Operating Base Alpha, watching teams of mixed Earth and local soldiers conducting training exercises. In the distance, smoke rose from demon territory as another enemy stronghold fell to coordinated assault. "Think we can actually win this?" Taman asked, joining his superior officer. "Win?" Yang smiled grimly. "Captain, we've already won. They just don't know it yet." The dimensional rift that had brought them to this world was growing larger and more stable. Soon, more help would arrive from Earth. But Yang was beginning to wonder if they would need it. The people of this world were learning to fight for themselves. And once free people decide to stop being afraid, they become the most dangerous force in any universe. Black Spire Tower had stood unconquered for 300 years. The massive demon fortress rose from the center of a crater lake, connected to shore only by a narrow stone bridge. Its black walls were carved with protective runes that deflected magical attacks. No human army had ever successfully stormed its gates. Colonel Yang studied the fortress through binoculars from a hilltop 2 miles away. The intelligence reports were accurate. Nearly 1,000 demons garrisoned inside, with powerful magical defenses and an impregnable position. Traditional siege would take months, he observed to his staff. We don't have months. Major Huang had been analyzing demon communication patterns for weeks. Sir, our intercepts suggest this is a critical supply hub. If we can take it, we cut their logistics network in half. Taking it is the easy part, said Captain Bay, examining aerial photos taken by reconnaissance drones built from magical components. Holding it against counterattacks will be the real challenge. First Sergeant Suman spread supply charts across a folding table. We can support a 2-week operation with current stockpiles. After that, we'll need to capture enemy supplies or withdraw. Yang nodded. Then we do it fast. Taman, what's the status of your assault teams? Captain Taman had spent months training mixed units of Earth soldiers and local fighters. The combination was proving devastatingly effective. Human tactical, knowledge merged with local understanding of magical combat. Ready, sir. We have 40 infiltration specialists, 60 assault troops, and 20 support personnel, all tested in combat, all working as integrated units. The plan Yang developed was unlike anything the magical realm had ever seen. Instead of a frontal assault across the bridge, multiple teams would attack simultaneously from different directions. Junho led the swimmer infiltrators, local fishermen who had learned underwater approach techniques. They would cross the lake at night using breathing apparatus made from modified magical items. Mina commanded the engineering team responsible for destroying the bridge after the assault force crossed. Her demolition charges would trap the demons inside their own fortress. Hana controlled communications and electronic warfare, using captured magical crystals to jam demon signals while coordinating human forces. The operation began at midnight on a moonless night. Yang watched from his command. Posta's status reports crackled through the radio network. Team 1 crossing now, whispered Junho. His swimmers moved through the dark water like ghosts, carrying waterproof explosives and climbing gear. Team 2 in position, reported Mina from the bridge approach. Her charges were already planted. Waiting for the signal. Team 3 ready, confirmed Captain Bay. His heavy weapons team had positioned magical artillery on the hillside, designed to suppress demon reinforcements. All teams, this is base command, Yang transmitted. Execute Phase 1. The night erupted in coordinated violence. Junho's infiltrators scaled the fortress walls and eliminated guards with silent efficiency. Their training had taught them to move like shadows and kill without making noise. Inside the tower, demons woke to find enemies already among them. Confusion spread as the garrison tried to understand how humans had penetrated their impregnable fortress. Phase 1 complete, Jun-Ho reported. Inner defenses neutralized. Execute Phase 2, Yang ordered. The main assault began as Taemin's teams crossed the bridge at running speed. They moved in small groups using covering fire and movement techniques no demon had ever encountered. Traditional fortress defenders expected enemies to mass at the gates, presenting obvious targets. Instead, the human assault scattered into dozens of small units that attacked from every direction simultaneously. Demon commanders tried to coordinate defense, but their communication crystals had been jammed by Hana's electronic warfare. Orders couldn't reach defending units, leaving each group to fight in isolation. Bridge secured, Taemin reported as his teams poured into the fortress courtyard. Beginning interior clearing operations. Execute Phase 3, Yang commanded. Mina triggered her charges, and the ancient bridge exploded in a shower of stone and magical energy. The fortress was now cut off from reinforcement, but the assault teams were also trapped inside with nearly 1,000 angry demons. The interior battle was vicious, but brief. Human tactics proved devastatingly effective in close quarters. Instead of the individual duels demons expected, they faced coordinated team assaults that overwhelmed defenders through superior firepower and movement. Captain Bay's magical artillery provided precise fire support, dropping explosive charges through windows and onto defensive positions. His weapons combined earth engineering with local magical components, creating devastating effects. Level 1 secured, reported Taemin. Moving to Level 2. Resistance collapsing, added Jun-Ho from his overwatch position. Enemy casualties, severe. The demon garrison commander, a creature called Grimax, realized his fortress was lost. He activated the tower's ultimate defense, a magical self-destruct that would kill everyone inside, human and demon alike. Hana detected the building magical energy just in time. Sir, massive energy buildup in the central tower. Looks like they're trying to blow the whole place. Yang didn't hesitate. All teams, emergency extraction, move now. But there was nowhere to go. The bridge was destroyed, and swimming across the lake while carrying wounded would be impossible. Then Jin, the former blacksmith turned demolitions expert, had an idea. What if we don't need to leave? What if we redirect that energy instead of letting it explode? Working with desperate speed, Jin and Mina rewired the tower's magical systems. Instead of destroying the fortress, the self-destruct energy was channeled into the lake, creating a massive steam explosion that built a temporary land bridge. All teams, extract now, Yang shouted. The assault teams ran across the steaming causeway as the fortress shuddered behind them. They reached safety just as the magical energy finally dissipated, leaving Black Spire Tower captured but intact. When dawn broke, the impossible had happened. The unconquerable fortress flew human flags instead of demon banners. Nearly 1,000 demons were dead or captured, while human casualties numbered less than 20. News of the victory spread across both human and demon territories like wildfire. The fortress that had anchored demon power in the eastern territories was now a human stronghold. More importantly, the tactical methods used in the assault were being studied and copied by human forces everywhere. Night operations, coordinated assaults, electronic warfare, and combined arms tactics were revolutionizing military doctrine across the realm. Demon commanders who had won easy victories for centuries suddenly found themselves facing enemies they couldn't predict or counter. Human armies that had been defensive and reactive became aggressive and proactive. King Theodore arrived at Blackspire Tower 3 days after its capture, bringing 100 knights and court officials. He stared at the captured fortress in amazement. "My grandfather's grandfather tried to take this place," he said to Yang. "He lost 3,000 men and failed completely. You did it in one night with less than 200. Different methods produce different results," Yang replied simply. "Teach me these methods, all of them. Are you prepared to change everything about how your kingdom fights?" The king looked at his knights, proud men trained in traditional warfare who had never won a significant victory against demons. "If it means we can protect our people, yes. Change everything." The transformation was beginning. Across the human kingdoms, old military doctrines were being abandoned in favor of new methods that actually worked. Noble-born officers who couldn't adapt were replaced by competent leaders from any social class. Most importantly, ordinary people were learning they had power. Farmers were becoming soldiers. Craftsmen were making weapons. Merchants were running supply networks. The entire social structure was shifting as merit replaced birth privilege. In his fortress deep in demon territory, Malthus felt the change like physical pain. For over 1,000 years, he had ruled through fear and superior magic. Now humans were learning to fight without fear, using methods that made magic less decisive. "Summon all my generals," he commanded his lieutenants. "This ends now. We march with the full army and crush these new humans before their ideas spread any further." The final battle was approaching, but the humans were no longer the same people who had cowered in fear just months earlier. They had learned to fight, to think, and to win. The war's outcome was no longer certain. The dimensional rift above Forward Operating Base Alpha crackled with purple energy, growing larger each day. Scientists on Earth had detected the anomaly and were sending through supplies, equipment, and more personnel. But they were also detecting something else. Massive magical energy signatures moving toward the rift from the demon realm. "Looks like we got their attention," Major Huang observed, studying intelligence reports from scout teams across the continent. "Every demon army is moving toward our position." Colonel Yang examined the tactical situation on a large map covered with colored pins. Red markers showed demon force concentrations. Blue showed human defensive positions, and green indicated allied kingdoms that had adopted Earth military doctrine. "Enemy strength?" he asked. "Conservative estimate, 50,000 demons, including their elite units and magical specialists," replied Captain Taman. "They're bringing everything they have." "Our strength?" First Sergeant Suman consulted her. "Personnel rosters. 800 Earth personnel now, thanks to the new arrivals. 12,000 trained local forces. Maybe 20,000 more militia with basic training." The numbers were sobering. Even with superior tactics and training, facing a 2-to-1 disadvantage against magical enemies would be challenging. "Sir," said Hana, entering the command post with a communication crystal. "Priority message from Earth Command." Yang activated the crystal, and a familiar voice filled the room. General Park, his former commander, spoke through the magical link. "Yang, we're tracking massive energy buildups in your dimension. Our physicists think the rift is becoming unstable. If it collapses while under attack, the resulting explosion could damage both our worlds." "Understood, sir. What are your orders?" "Hold position at all costs. We're sending everything we can through the rift, but if it closes, you're on your own permanently." Yang looked at his assembled officers. The implications were clear. This wasn't just about winning a war anymore. They were protecting Earth itself from a dimensional catastrophe. "New mission parameters," he announced. "We defend the rift zone until Earth can stabilize it or evacuate our people. Secondary objective: prevent demon forces from accessing our world." Over the following weeks, the buildup intensified on both sides. Earth continued sending personnel and equipment through the unstable rift. Military engineers, medical teams, logistics specialists, and combat units poured into the magical realm. Among the new arrivals was Dr. Kim Suk-young, a physicist specializing in dimensional mechanics, and Commander Na Youngmin, who brought 2 companies of Marines and enough heavy weapons to outfit a small army. "The rift is definitely growing," Dr. Kim reported after examining the dimensional anomaly with both magical and scientific instruments. "But it's also becoming more unstable. We have maybe 2 weeks before it either stabilizes permanently or collapses catastrophically." Meanwhile, the demon buildup was visible even from space. Satellite imagery showed massive encampments spreading across hundreds of square miles. The demon lord had committed everything to this final battle. They're not just planning to destroy us, Major Huang realized, studying enemy movement patterns. They want to invade Earth through the rift. The revelation changed everything. This wasn't just about saving a magical realm anymore. Earth itself was under threat. Yang called together representatives from every human kingdom and settlement that had adopted Earth military doctrine. The meeting took place in the Great Hall of Blackspire Tower, now serving as regional military headquarters. King Theodore spoke first. "My scouts report demon armies approaching from 3 directions. They'll be here within days. My people are ready to fight," declared Elder Deho, representing the civilian militia forces. "We've trained hard, and we're not afraid anymore. The question is whether we can hold long enough," said Captain Marcus, now commanding a regiment of kingdom soldiers trained in modern tactics. Yang stood before the assembled leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're facing the largest demon army ever assembled, and they have magical capabilities we still don't fully understand. Our chances of victory in a conventional battle are slim." Murmurs of concern rippled through the audience. "However," Yang continued, "we're not fighting a conventional battle. We're fighting a war of survival, and humans have never been better at anything than surviving." He activated a holographic projector showing a 3-dimensional map of the entire region. The display showed defensive positions, supply lines, and planned battle zones. The enemy expects us to meet them in a traditional battle. Instead, we're going to use every advantage we have: superior technology, better tactics, detailed intelligence, and most importantly, the fact that we're fighting for our homes and families. The plan Yang outlined was ambitious and risky. Instead of concentrating forces for a single decisive battle, human armies would conduct a strategic defense in depth. Multiple defensive lines would slow the demon advance, while specialized strike teams targeted enemy supply lines and command structures. We turned the entire region into a battlefield, he explained. Every village, every forest, every hill becomes a defensive position. The demons will win individual battles, but they'll lose the war through 1,000 small defeats. Taemin would command the mobile strike forces, using hit-and-run tactics to disrupt enemy operations. Junho would coordinate sniper teams and reconnaissance units. Mina would oversee defensive engineering and demolition operations. Hana would manage communications and electronic warfare across the entire theater. "What about the rift?" asked Dr. Kim. "If the demons reach it during the unstable period, the explosion could devastate both dimensions. Then we make sure they never get that far," Yang said grimly. As the meeting ended, Captain Taemin approached his commander privately. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. Are we really fighting to save Earth, or are we fighting because this has become our home?" Yang considered the question. Over the past year, they had built relationships, trained local people, and become part of this world's struggle for freedom. Many of the Earth personnel had formed deep bonds with local civilians. "Does it matter?" Yang asked. "Either way, we fight." "No, sir, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to know where we stand. We stand with the people who trusted us enough to learn from us. We stand with the farmers who became soldiers and the blacksmiths who became engineers. We stand with everyone who decided to stop being afraid." Outside, the first demon scouts were already probing the outer defensive perimeters. The final battle was about to begin, but it wouldn't be the kind of battle anyone expected. The war had evolved far beyond its original parameters. This wasn't just humans versus demons anymore. It was two different ways of understanding power: domination through fear versus cooperation through shared purpose. And in the end, that difference would determine not just who won the battle, but what kind of future both worlds would have. The ground shook as 50,000 demons marched toward the human defensive lines. Their army stretched across the horizon like a dark tide, accompanied by war drums that could be heard for miles. At their head rode Demon Lord Malphus himself, an ancient creature of terrible power who had ruled through fear for over a millennium. Colonel Yang stood atop the walls of Forward Operating Base Alpha, watching the approaching host through binoculars. Behind him, Dr. Kim worked frantically with her team to stabilize the dimensional rift, which crackled with increasing violence as magical energy built toward critical levels. "Sir, all units report ready," came Taemin's voice through the radio. His strike teams were positioned throughout the region, waiting for the battle to begin. "Defensive positions manned and ready," added Commander Na. "The Marines and Kingdom Soldiers were dug in along multiple defensive lines, each designed to channel the enemy assault into predetermined kill zones. "Communications network operational," reported Hana. "All units linked and standing by." Yang keyed his radio for an all-units broadcast. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Everything we've trained for comes down to the next few hours. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every person who chose courage over fear." The demon assault began with magical bombardment. Fireballs and lightning strikes hammered the forward defensive positions, but the humans had learned to build shelters that could withstand magical attacks. Then came the ground assault. Wave after wave of demons charged across the open ground, expecting to overwhelm human positions through sheer numbers and magical power. Instead, they ran into something no demon army had ever faced: defense in depth supported by modern military doctrine. The first defensive line held just long enough to channel the assault into prepared killing grounds, then fell back to secondary positions as planned. Demons who expected easy victory found themselves trapped in trenches filled with explosive devices and covered by overlapping fields of fire. "First line withdrawing on schedule," reported Captain Marcus. "Enemy casualties heavy, but they're still advancing." "Second line prepare for contact," Yang ordered. Mina's demolition teams destroyed bridges and collapsed tunnels as the demons advanced, forcing them to funnel through narrow passages where concentrated firepower could be most effective. Every mile the demons gained cost them hundreds of casualties. But Malphus was no ordinary opponent. The Demon Lord had lived for centuries and commanded magical powers beyond human understanding. As his forces bogged down in the prepared defenses, he decided to end the battle personally. "All units, priority alert," Hana's voice crackled with tension. "Massive magical energy signature approaching from the south. It's him, the big guy himself." Malphus rose into the air on wings of shadow, his body wreathed in dark fire. He was over 20 feet tall, with claws that could tear through steel and eyes that burned with ancient hatred. "Puny humans!" His voice boomed across the battlefield. "You think your tricks and cleverness can defeat true power? I will show you the difference between mortal ambition and immortal might." The Demon Lord unleashed his full magical power. Lightning split the sky, the ground cracked open, and hurricane winds tore at the human defenses. This was power on a scale no earthly weapon could match. "All units, fall back to final defensive positions," Yang ordered. "Prepare for close engagement." But Taman had a different idea. "Sir, requesting permission to engage the primary target." "Captain, that thing just demonstrated magical power equivalent to a natural disaster. What exactly do you plan to do about it?" "Use his power against him, sir. Just like we trained." Yang understood immediately. "Permission granted. All units, support Captain Taman's operation." What followed was the most audacious gambit in military history. Instead of trying to match Malphus's magical power, Taman's team used human tactics: misdirection, precision timing, and turning the enemy's strength into a weakness. Shunyo, positioned on a distant hilltop, fired a single shot that struck Malphus in the shoulder. The bullet couldn't seriously harm the Demon Lord, but it got his attention and triggered his rage. Malthus dove toward the sniper position, gathering magical energy for a devastating attack. But as he focused his power, Mina detonated carefully placed charges that collapsed the hillside into a perfectly calculated avalanche. The demon lord found himself buried under tons of rock, his magical attacks now working against him as they destabilized his position further. "Now!" Taman shouted. Hana activated every communication crystal in the region simultaneously, creating a feedback loop that disrupted magical energy in a wide radius. For the first time in his existence, Malthus found his magical abilities suppressed. The demon army watched in shock as their invincible lord struggled to free himself from a trap made of nothing but falling rocks and interfering signals. "All units, general assault," Yang commanded. "Hit them while their leader is down." The counterattack was devastating. Human forces that had been defending desperately suddenly turned aggressive, striking at demoralized demon units whose command structure was in chaos. But the battle was far from over. Even with his magic suppressed, Malthus was physically powerful enough to tear through rock and steel. He broke free from the avalanche, roaring with fury and seeking revenge. That was when the dimensional rift began to collapse. "Colonel!" Dr. Kim's voice was tight with panic. "The magical disruption destabilized the rift. It's going critical. We have maybe 10 minutes before catastrophic dimensional failure." The implications hit Yang immediately. If the rift collapsed while Malthus was nearby, the explosion would be powerful enough to devastate both worlds. They had to get the demon lord away from the rift zone. Taman, new mission. Lead the target away from the base. Maximum distance, maximum speed. Understood, sir. How do we get a 20-foot demon to chase us? Insult his pride. Make him angry enough to follow you personally. What followed was the strangest chase in military history. Taman's team used every trick they knew to stay ahead of an enraged demon lord while leading him steadily away from the dimensional rift. They used explosives to block paths, forcing Malthus to take longer routes. They fired at him from concealment, then disappeared before he could retaliate. Most importantly, they kept him focused on personal revenge instead of strategic objectives. 5 minutes to rift collapse, Dr. Kim reported. You need to be at least 10 kilometers away. 7 minutes out, Taman replied breathlessly. His team was running at maximum speed while a creature of ultimate evil pursued them with murderous intent. Behind them, the demon army was falling apart. Without their lord's leadership and faced with coordinated human resistance, demon units began retreating in disorder. Centuries of easy victories hadn't prepared them for an enemy that fought back effectively. 3 minutes, Dr. Kim warned. The rift is showing major instabilities. Almost there, Taman gasped. They had led Malthus to an ancient quarry far enough from the rift to protect both dimensions. The demon lord finally cornered them at the edge of the quarry. His power was returning as Hana's jamming effects weakened with distance. "Now you die," Malthus snarled, raising claws wreathed in dark fire. "Actually," said Taman, "now you fall." Mina triggered the final set of charges, explosive devices she had placed around the quarry's rim. The ancient stone walls collapsed inward, and Malthus plunged into the deep pit below. "Rift collapse in 10 seconds, Dr. Kim announced. The dimensional explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. Energy that could have destroyed both worlds was contained by the rift's collapse, creating a spectacular but harmless light show. When the glare faded, the demon army was in full retreat. Their lord was trapped at the bottom of a deep pit. Their magical support had been disrupted, and human forces were pursuing them aggressively. The war was over. Demons, who had terrorized the realm for centuries, were fleeing in panic, pursued by farmers and craftsmen who had learned they didn't have to be afraid anymore. Yang surveyed the battlefield from his command post. Human casualties had been remarkably light, considering they had faced 50,000 enemies. More importantly, the dimensional threat was ended, and both worlds were safe. "Sir," came Taman's voice through the radio, "primary target secured. The Big Ugly is alive but contained. What are your orders?" Yang smiled grimly. "Guard him carefully, Captain. Something tells me we're going to need to have a very long conversation with our prisoner." The final battle was won, but the real work was just beginning. 2 worlds had been changed forever, and now they had to figure out how to build a future together. 1 year after the Battle of the Rift, Colonel Yang stood on the walls of New Haven, watching morning sunlight paint the rebuilt city in golden hues. Below him, the streets bustled with activity unlike anything the magical realm had seen before. Human engineers worked alongside elvish craftsmen. Dwarf miners shared techniques with earth geologists. Former demon territories had become farmland, worked by mixed communities of locals and immigrants. The transformation had been remarkable. Where once stood the ruins of ancient conflicts, now rose a city that represented the best of both worlds. Traditional magical architecture blended with modern engineering principles. Communication networks used magical crystals enhanced with Earth technology. Even the city's name reflected the new reality. This was a haven for anyone willing to work toward a better future. "Sir, the morning briefing is ready," announced Major Huang, now serving as Deputy Administrator for Interdimensional Relations. The military ranks remained, but their jobs had evolved far beyond warfare. Yang made his way to what had once been a military command center and was now the seat of the Inter-Realm Council. Representatives from 12 human kingdoms, 5 elvish enclaves, 3 dwarf holds, and even 2 former demon territories gathered around a circular table designed to give no single group precedence over others. "First item," Yang announced, consulting his agenda. "The Academy of Magical Engineering requests approval for the new curriculum proposed by Director Park." Mina had taken naturally to her role as head of the Academy. Her combination of Earth engineering knowledge and growing understanding of magical principles had revolutionized how both worlds approached technology. "The mining equipment designs are working better than expected," reported Thorin, the dwarf representative. "Production in the copper mines has increased by 300% using the new techniques, and the magical enhancements are stable over long periods," added Alara, speaking for the elvish communities. "Our craftsmen are very impressed with the hybrid approaches. King Theodore, now President Theodore under the new democratic system, his kingdom had adopted, nodded approvingly. The economic benefits are clear, but what about military applications?" "Military research continues under strict oversight," Yang replied. "The weapons development program focuses on defensive systems only. We've all agreed that offensive magical weapons are too dangerous for any single group to control. The discussion continued through various topics: trade agreements, immigration policies, educational exchanges, and infrastructure projects. What struck Yang most was how normal it all seemed now. A year ago, these different groups had been strangers or enemies. Now they worked together as easily as if they had always been allies. After the formal meeting ended, Yang walked through the city to check on various projects personally. This had become his daily routine, a way to stay connected with the reality of what they were building. His first stop was the Memorial Garden, where names of fallen soldiers from both worlds were carved into crystalline walls that glowed softly with magical light. Captain Marcus, who had survived the war and become head of the city's security force, was placing fresh flowers by the memorial. "Any word from Earth about the families?" Yang asked. "The next transport arrives tomorrow," Marcus replied. 20 more families have chosen to immigrate permanently. That brings the total to over 300 Earth citizens who've decided to make this world their home. Yang nodded. The flow had been two-way. Earth scientists, engineers, and teachers came to study magic and help build the new society. In return, local residents traveled to Earth to learn advanced technology and share their own knowledge. And the other direction? 15 more locals are headed to Earth for university programs, including Jin's daughter. She wants to study advanced chemistry. Yang smiled. Jin, the former blacksmith turned demolitions expert, had become one of the city's most successful manufacturers. His workshops produced everything from farming tools to precision instruments, all enhanced with magical properties he had learned to understand and control. The next stop was the Dimensional Research Center, where Dr. Kim led a team of Earth scientists and local mages in studying the stabilized rift. What had started as a military necessity had become a scientific marvel. "Any progress on controlled dimensional access?" Yang asked. "Slow but steady," Dr. Kim replied. "We can now open small, temporary rifts to specific locations. The energy cost is enormous, but it proves the theory works. Give us another 5 years, and we might have practical dimensional travel." The implications were staggering. Instead of being connected to just one other world, both Earth and Valdris might eventually access an entire multi-dimensional network. Yang's final stop was always the same: the prisoner compound where Malthus remained under careful guard. The former demon lord had been stripped of most of his magical power and confined in a cell designed by both Earth engineers and local mages working together. Surprisingly, Malthus had proven to be a valuable source of information. His centuries of existence had given him knowledge about the realm's history, magical principles, and even other dimensions that proved invaluable to the research teams. "Any changes?" Yang asked the guard commander. "He's been asking to see you again," Sergeant Kim replied. "Says he has important information about dimensional anomalies in the Eastern Territories." Yang sighed. His regular conversations with the imprisoned demon lord were among his strangest duties, but they had provided crucial insights into threats that still existed in unexplored parts of the realm. "Set up a meeting for tomorrow, full security protocols." As evening approached, Yang returned to his office in the council building. On his desk waited reports from dozens of communities across the realm, all following the development model established at New Haven. Former enemies were learning to work together, creating prosperity that benefited everyone. Captain Taman entered without knocking, a privilege earned through years of shared danger and mutual respect. "The evening reports," he said, setting down a stack of documents. "Overall good news. Crime down in all major cities, trade up by 15%, and zero military conflicts for the third month running." And the bad news? Long-range scouts report strange energy signatures near the broken peaks. Could be natural magical phenomena, but it's worth investigating. Yang wasn't surprised. As their civilization expanded, they kept discovering new mysteries and challenges. The realm was vast, and much of it remained unexplored. Put together a research expedition. Mixed team as usual. We'll investigate properly instead of making assumptions. Taman smiled. Already in progress, Junho volunteered to lead the reconnaissance team. Says he's getting bored with city life. And the others? Mina wants to stay and work on the new irrigation project. Hana is developing the telecommunications network with the Eastern Kingdoms. Everyone's finding their place in the new world. That phrase captured something important. The new world wasn't just about the magical realm adopting Earth technology or Earth people learning magic. It was about creating something that belonged to everyone who chose to be part of it. Yang walked to his office window and looked out over the lights of New Haven. In the distance, he could see the gentle glow of the stabilized dimensional rift, a permanent bridge between worlds that had once been strangers. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Hana's voice came through the magical crystal network that now connected communities across thousands of miles. "Sir, priority message from the Eastern Research Station. They've detected what appears to be signals from a third dimension. Artificial signals, possibly indicating another intelligent civilization." Yang smiled. Just when they thought they understood their situation, the universe presented them with new possibilities. "Acknowledged, Hana. Schedule a full briefing for tomorrow's council meeting, and prepare a preliminary response protocol." "Understood, sir. Should we alert Earth Command?" "Not yet. Let's gather more information first. But begin preparing a detailed report." As the communication ended, Yang reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate summoning ritual. The Council of Mages had wanted heroes to save their world from destruction. Instead, they had received something better: teachers who helped them save themselves. The magical realm no longer lived in fear of demons or any other external threat. More importantly, its people had learned that they could shape their own destiny through cooperation, innovation, and the courage to try new approaches. Earth, meanwhile, had gained access to knowledge and possibilities beyond imagination. The partnership between worlds had enriched both civilizations in ways no one could have predicted. Yang began drafting his weekly report to send back to Earth Command, but his mind was already thinking ahead to tomorrow's challenges. A third dimension with intelligent life. New territories to explore, communities to build, problems to solve. The work never ended, but that was fine with him. They were building something unprecedented, a civilization that spanned multiple worlds and included multiple species, all working together toward common goals. As he wrote, Yang smiled at the irony. The desperate mages who had performed that first summoning had wanted champions to fight their war. They had ended up with something much more valuable, partners in building a future worth fighting for.